The incessant spread of misinformation that's constantly being used against lesbians has to be addressed. I literally cannot go one day without seeing someone saying, well, lesbians have the highest rates of domestic violence. It's a huge myth that's really starting to piss me off. These disgusting people take a few numbers out of context from a random statistic without even attempting to read the whole document to try to make it seem like women, lesbians especially, are the problem. Please make sure to subscribe, and share this video to people who aren't aware of this. It's gotten to the point that we can't even spread awareness about male violence against women and intimate partner homicide without someone bringing up this lie. This lie homophobes are spreading further harms lesbians and stigmatizes them, leading to more homophobia, lesbophobia, prejudice, violence, and hate crimes. Let's not even get into how they're also lying about lesbians having the highest divorce rates. So here's what those misinterpreted statistics actually say.
A commentary about men that I see? Well, actually, lesbians have the highest reported rates of IPV. Hi, my name is Liz. It's been a minute since I've addressed this particular bout of misinformation, so let's get into it. I think this comment is very reflective of the influence of debate culture, especially here on TikTok. This is a 48-page data survey. It's also from 2010. Because what you're doing is you're presenting one set of numbers at face value, assuming that it backs up the point that you're trying to make, which is that lesbians are more abusive. But if you read the entire study, or even just a couple pages of the study in their entirety, you would see that the people who answered this survey are discussing their experiences throughout their lifetime. So when people are commenting on male entitlement and male violence and the way that that affects our society, it is not a gotcha to say, well, what about lesbian IPV? Higher reported rates of intimate partner violence in lesbian relationships are not indicative of women being actually more violent than men just in relationships. No, what these numbers tell us is that perpetrators do not care about the sexual orientation of their victims. And this is reflective in the data breakdown of the report itself. The majority of lesbian, bisexual, and heterosexual women, 85.2%, 87.5%, and 94.7% respectively, who experienced sexual violence other than rape in their lifetime, reported having only male perpetrators. And this was just a questionnaire based on how people were identifying at the time that they took this survey. All of this is in here. While there is, of course, violence in every demographic because anyone is capable of being violent, this report is rather indicative of lack of resources and community aid, right? Because again, what y'all fail to realize is that anybody can be violent. When we bring up criticisms of toxic masculinity or male-predominated violence, the implication is not women are not incapable of doing bad things, is that violence and the hierarchy that comes through heteronormativity is part of masculinity. It's woven into the masculine culture. In other words, violence is often encouraged in men while it is discouraged in women. And of course, there are exceptions to every rule, but if anything else was true in our society, what we would be seeing is a much more equally perpetrated crime statistics, right? You all wouldn't just be able to pick one set of numbers and throw them out of context and say, look, women are just as bad. No, there would be consistent data showing that women are committing the same amounts of violent crime on a similar basis as men consistently, but there's not. This is not biological. This is social. And comments like this just really make me wish that stuff like this was part of our required curriculum in schools, because it's really easy to just look at numbers, especially if those numbers may confirm what you already believe in your head, but it's a lot harder to contextualize data and properly read that data. If you read all the way to the end, you can see the implications for prevention and what they recommend, and a lot of it is community aid and access to resources.
Why, when we talk about male violence against women and girls, are some people so quick to throw false lesbian domestic abuse statistics out there? I posted a video a few weeks ago about domestic abuse homicide rates between March 2019 to March 2021. 269 of those victims were female, 96.6% of those perpetrators were male. And 104 of those victims were male, where 31.7% of the perpetrators were female. Now, instead of actually looking at what these statistics tell us, some people, and I say some, it seems like quite a lot, would rather deflect with huge assumptions about domestic abuse within the lesbian community. Okay, so what actually are the lesbian domestic abuse homicide statistics for the same period? So 9 women were victims of domestic homicide by other women. 3 were partners or ex-partners, and the final 6 were family members. And just while we're on it, 71 men during that same time period were victims of domestic homicide by other men. 65 of the perpetrators were male family members, and 6 were partners or ex-partners. Now, these lesbian domestic homicide statistics do not come close to the number of men that kill women within that same period. So why are these people so quick to push a false narrative? Deflection. Until our society acknowledge the problem of male violence against women and girls and stop pointlessly deflecting with either false assumptions or false statistics, nothing's going to change.
You want to remove men from the streets? Are you going to hold true to the standard for this community of people too? Or
Hey, Robert, listen, man, I know you're allergic to reading past your confirmation bias, but that's not what these studies say. You see right there in what you read off where it says intimate partner violence? Right, guess what? There has not been one single study done on strictly female victims of IPV in relationships with other women. According to one of the most cited and comprehensive studies available, reports of certain demographics experiencing IPV at some point in their lives comes out like this. Lesbians have a reported IPV rate of 43.8%, bisexual women have a reported rate of 61.1%, and straight women have a reported rate of 35%. When all we do is look at those numbers, that confirms what you said. When we contextualize the data as a whole, the number of women who report having only male perpetrators of IPV comes in at 89.5% for bisexual women and 98.7% for heterosexual women, comparatively to 67.4% of lesbian women who report only having female perpetrators. When we subtract male-initiated IPV from this equation, the numbers come out to bisexual women experiencing IPV at the hands of other women at 6.4% and lesbian women at a rate of 29.5%, which is to say that women that are in strict relationships with other women have a significantly lower rate of IPV. You don't know how to read, or you're deliberately spreading misinformation about lesbian and bisexual women. The reality is, because of our patriarchal society and the way that it props up and protects abusers, men are always significantly more likely to be perpetrating abuse. It is an undeniable fact.
Lesbians have the highest rate of domestic violence out of all couples.
Wrong, no. So he's misquoting the stat there. The stat isn't that lesbians have the highest rate of domestic violence out of all couples. It's that 44% of lesbians have experienced some kind of domestic violence from an intimate partner over their lifetime. That doesn't say anything about who's committing the domestic violence. Plenty of lesbians date men before they start dating women. That's just what gay people do. So in order to find out who's committing the domestic violence, we need to dig deeper. So the stat that he's misquoting comes from the Intimate Partner Violence Survey that the CDC does every few years. This is from 2010. It was published in 2013, and it surveys like millions and millions of people in the US. So this is where the data will be. So if we go to key findings, we see that he's already wrong. Bisexual women had a significantly higher rate of IPV in their lifetime at 61.1%, compared with lesbian women at 43.8% and heterosexual women at 35%. But again, this doesn't tell us who's committing the violence. And the reason that that's important is because of this part of the clip.
I actually didn't know that, which makes you really wonder, like, who is the real problem? Women. Yeah.
But if we look at the sex of the perpetrator, 97% of female victims report having only male perpetrators and only 2% had female perpetrators. But women are the problem.
Now that that's been established, let's remind ourselves of who the real violent abusers are. Men. Men commit over 90% of all crimes. A woman gets murdered by her own husband or boyfriend every single day in Italy. In the US, 4 women a day are killed from domestic violence. In Mexico, a woman is murdered every 4 hours by her husband, yet straight people want to make it seem like lesbian couples are the one with the problem. To all the ignorant people who spread the lie that lesbians have the highest rates of domestic violence and are watching this right now, stay out of lesbians' business and work on your own terrible, violent, failing, hetero relationships. Bye.
What insane stat lives in your head rent-free?
86% of armed robberies are committed by men. 77% of aggravated assaults are committed by men. 87% of stalkers are men. 86% of domestic violence incidents resulting in physical injury are perpetrated by men. 99% of rapes are committed by men. Men commit approximately 90% of murder. And over the past 30 years, 61 of the last 62 mass shootings have been committed by men.